Yay. We were having a lunch up in the hotel, and the sirens went off. We heard them, and we were all rushed into a shelter and had to stay there until the coast was clear. And then, a few minutes ago, this press conference was delayed for the same reason. So Israelis are affected all the time by Hamas's warlike attitudes. Look, there are no words for the horror that happened last Saturday. It shook me to my core. I think about it all the time. I see the pictures of the little children, and I think, what if what if this happened to my 4-year-old grandson? Most Jews killed in a single day since the Holocaust, more than on Kristallnacht. It was horrible. And when I was recently in China, and I met with the Israeli ambassador in Beijing, and that's where I first learned about what happened on a kibbutz, where Hamas herded everyone, about 100 people, into a room, a recreation room, and then slaughtered them, machine-gunned every one of them down. And it reminded me of a story in my family. My great-grandmother was the wife of a famous rabbi who had previously died in Chortkiv, a town in western Ukraine. The Nazis came in. They asked her to gather her greater family on the porch. Approximately 35 people gathered from ages 88 to 3 months. The Nazis said, "You're coming with us." She said, "We're not going," and they machine-gunned every one of them down. So unfortunately, we all know the depth of the agony that Israel feels. And the world can't move on and say, oh, well, that was yesterday. Because if we don't prevent the threat from Hamas from occurring, it'll happen again and again and again. Let's not forget that Hamas does not believe in any Jewish state. If you read some of their covenants and charters, they would do to the Jewish people in the rest of Israel what they did to the people along the Gaza border. They must be stopped. And the viciousness of this attack, I mean, it's just wrenching. Young women raped and murdered side by side. Babies, throats slit in front of their parents, and then they shoot the parents. And so many other things that we've read about. So we cannot let this evil continue to prowl the earth. So, in the face of this horrific attack, we're here to share a message of resolute solidarity. We say to Israel, America will stand with its ally Israel, and I, along with my colleagues here, will lead the effort in the United States Senate to provide Israel with the support required to fully defend itself from this monstrous attack. Again, to the Israeli people, America has your back. The purpose of our trip has been threefold. First, to send a clear message to the Israeli people that the United States stands with Israel. Two, to meet with the leaders in Israel and discuss in detail what Israel needs in terms of resources, military, intelligence, and humanitarian, and support that so we can put the best aid package together quickly. And three, to show that Israel's support is bipartisan. Behind me are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. We have a lot of partisan divisions in America, but this isn't one of them. Now, Israeli forces have already begun the work to extinguish the threat of Hamas. That is a goal that has to happen. There's also an important mission to rescue hostages taken by Hamas, many of whom are women, children, elderly. Some are Americans. As I said, we met with some of the families of these hostages today. As a parent or grandparent, it's truly heart-wrenching. We wept as they told their stories. They were such beautiful, brave people. And every second seems like a day as they're wondering what has happened to their child, to their parent, to their brother, to their sister. And we told them we would do everything we could including speaking to the president next week, who had talked to these parents as well. But we're going to talk to him next week about the U.S. doing everything it can to help get the hostages relieved. The Biden administration and the Israeli government have assured us that that's happening. Now, these are two necessary tasks: eliminating the threat of Hamas once and for all, and freeing hostages. But these tasks are made more difficult because, unlike Hamas, civilized democracies like the U.S. and like Israel must hold themselves to a higher standard. The Biden administration has underscored that democracies like ours are stronger and more secure when we uphold the rule of law. We echoed that to the Prime Minister of Israel and to every Israeli official we met. We told them that as well as military assistance, intelligence assistance, diplomatic assistance, we wanted humanitarian assistance. And I said to them, find the fastest, safest, and most efficient way to do so. We also told them it was really important and it's difficult. We know it's difficult, but still we have to minimize civilian casualties in Gaza. As Senate Majority Leader, as I mentioned, the highest-ranking Jewish leader in American history, I'm doing everything in my power to ensure the Senate delivers the support Israel needs to accomplish these military intelligence and humanitarian goals. We will not just talk, we will act. We will work to move this aid through the Senate ASAP. And the Israeli leaders made it clear to us they need the aid quickly. We heard from the Israeli leaders about what is needed. And in munitions, we heard about precision-guided bombs. We heard about Iron Dome replacement. We heard about 155-millimeter mortars. We heard about JDAMs and many other things. And we also talked about what kinds of intelligence help they needed, as well as diplomatic help that we might be able to do as well. The needs, of course, are quickly evolving over time. So we will work with the Israeli government and the Biden administration to assemble the most generous package possible. When I return to Washington, I'm going to direct Senators Murray, Reid, and Cardin, heads of the most relevant committees, to work with their ranking Republican members and the Biden administration to pull together a package that the Senate can take up within the next few weeks. Now, people will ask, what about the House? We're not waiting for the House. We believe if the Senate acts in a strong bipartisan way, it may indeed improve the chances that the House, even with its current dysfunction, will act. So the bottom line is that October 7th is a day that will no doubt live in infamy. My guess is I'll think of it every day for the rest of my life, just as I think of 9/11 every day for the rest of my life. And now we just want to be clear to the Israeli people during these such difficult times. I just asked 4 random Israelis, a guy driving the car, a waiter at the restaurant, and 2 others I bumped into. Every one of them knows somebody who's close to them who has been lost. So it's such a difficult time. But we know the difficulty of their task, but we also know success. The elimination of the threat of Hamas is vital. Israel has a right to defend itself and eliminate the threat to Hamas to make sure this evil never happens again. Our prayers are with all of those killed and taken hostage, their families, the thousands injured. May the memories of the dead be a blessing and a source of strength to all of us as we navigate this challenging future with fortitude of spirit and solidarity of purpose. Jackie, do you want to go next?
Oops. I'm not that tall. There we go. Wait. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. I'm United States Senator Jacky Rosen. I want to thank Leader Schumer for leading this bipartisan delegation and for my Democratic and Republican, not just colleagues, but friends, for joining us here today and presenting a united front. And I want to thank the Israeli government for hosting us. I stand here as the only Jewish woman in the Senate, the only Jewish mother in the Senate, a former synagogue president, a steadfast supporter of Israel. Israel lives in the hearts of all Jewish people. We come to Israel for weddings, for bar mitzvahs, to visit family and loved ones, for our simchas, our joys, and our sorrows. We come to connect with our Jewish heritage. But after the events of October 7th, our hearts have been shattered. We've seen the heart-wrenching reports showing the carnage and brutality of Hamas's terrorist attack. Young people gunned down, murdered, trying to flee a music festival. Children burned, children kidnapped. Holocaust survivors ripped from their families. We sat with the family members of hostages, or like Leader Schumer said, every second they wait is an eternity. Their lives forever changed as we wait. And these details, they may sound like they're straight out of a horror movie. It's a nightmare. But being on the ground, meeting with those who are impacted, those who have lost family, friends, and loved ones, I'm here to tell the world this is real. This is real. Do not look away. This is real. I said I'm the only Jewish mother in the Senate. And I can tell you that meeting with Israeli mothers whose children were killed, hearing their stories, hearing the mothers today, the daughters, the cousins, the sisters, brothers, their pain, their heartbreak. I too will remember this for the rest of my life. And as Jews, we know that never again, well, it means right now. And that's why we're here to say the United States stands with Israel now and always. Our support remains unwavering and unconditional. And we as Democrats and Republicans are working to deliver our support as quickly as possible because we know in this moment, in this place, and this here, and in this now, we must take decisive action. You have our commitment to do whatever, provide whatever assistance you need to defend yourselves from terrorism, whether it comes from Hamas, Hezbollah, or any other Iranian proxy. This includes replenishing the Iron Dome so it can continue protecting innocent lives. And we'll work together to get Israel additional funding to protect the Israeli people, to reunite families, to rescue those who are being held hostage, and to hold Iranian-backed Hamas accountable for the atrocities they have committed and they are still committing. Sadly, history has shown what happens when the world abandons the Jewish people. I'm here to say that America will never again abandon the Jewish state. Am Yisrael Chai.
Senator Romney.
This has been a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching experience for me, for my colleagues, for you, and for the world. To see the people of Israel subjected to such brutality, such heinous acts by individuals whose purpose is unimaginable. My heart breaks not just for our friends and allies, but for people who I love and hold dear. Now, there are two things I'd like to mention, because I agree with what my colleagues have just said, and I'm not going to say the same thing, but I want to add just two points. Number one, you're going to see pictures, as you could imagine and probably already have, of Palestinian civilians that are going to be injured and killed by virtue of the conflict which is ongoing. I hope we recognize that those individuals are being killed because of Hamas, not because of Israel. In many respects, most directly, Hamas is holding their own population, the Palestinian population, as human shields. They're using Palestinians to protect their own lives, Hamas's lives, and therefore when Israel takes action to try and go after Hamas and to take out its leadership, there will be individuals who are civilians and innocent that will be killed, and they will parade that as if this is some horror being perpetrated by Israel. Do not forget the lives that you're going to see lost on TV over the coming long period of time, potentially. Israeli lives and Palestinian lives are all the result of Hamas. And number two, and this is a point I think for my friends in the United States in particular, there is a growing sentiment in my country of isolationism, which is, let's not worry about what's going on in the rest of the world. Let everybody else worry about those things. This is a bipartisan group that has a different point of view, which is that we want to stand with our allies and with our friends. But I would note with regards to those that have isolationist tendencies, that there's a war being waged against free countries, against democracies, against freedom. And it's being waged by Hamas and Russia and China, Iran. There are nations, Iran, Russia, China, that want to overthrow democracies generally and subvert the cause of freedom. And backing away and saying, hey, we're not going to worry about it, is not going to end their effort. That war would only continue and spread further and ultimately involve more and more of humanity. So we're involved in the world because it's in America's interest, it's in Israel's interest, it's in all of our allies' interest, it's in the world's interest. This is obviously a period of great sadness. And meeting today with the families of hostages has been something I will never forget. And can only imagine the horror in their lives. My heart reaches to them. My prayers join with yours to see those hostages return to their loved ones.
Thank you, Chuck. Senator Rosen and I were here in January, just 10 months ago. And it's really kind of shocking how much has changed. I mean, we were here to sort of celebrate the Abraham Accords and all the positive benefits it brings not only to Israel, but Israel's partners in this agreement. And 10 months later, we're back for, I would say, exactly the opposite reason. The meetings we had today were some of the toughest I've had in my 2.5 years in the United States Senate. And some of the images and video that we saw was like I've never seen in my life. And I spent 25 years in the United States Navy, flying in combat over Iraq and Kuwait. I mean, I'm here to say that the United States, has and is going to continue to support and stand by our ally, Israel, as you defend yourself from these barbaric attacks by Hamas. Over the last week, I've been following closely what's been going on here and speaking with many members of the Arizona Jewish community. My wife, Gabby Giffords, is a member of that community. And I bring a message of support from them and from so many Americans who have been deeply affected by these attacks and are thinking about the Israeli people every single day. Now, myself and Senator Rosen were members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and we have worked really hard to get aid for Israel over my time in the Senate, and I know that's true for Senator Rosen as well. But this brings this problem to a whole nother entire level. And we have so much more to do. I understand some of these challenges that Israel is facing operationally, tactically. And there are challenges ahead. I mean, expending a stockpile of interceptors, that is not limitless. I mean, that happened just tonight a couple times as we were in the shelter on the 22nd floor. I will speak to members of Congress one by one, if that's what it takes to get Israel the munitions that you need to defend yourselves. And it's not just about these munitions. I mean, we're sending other support as well. The USS Ford is off the coast in the Med today. I mean, the Hamas terrorist organization is a threat to Israel and all who want peace. And we are going to continue to stand by Israel in its self-defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Cassidy.
I am Senator Bill Cassidy, representing the great state of Louisiana. We've had a great day today, meeting with political and military leaders, and at the end of the day, the most powerful meeting with the family members of those who have been taken hostage. And one family said, it's hard to imagine that the good news, the news that makes you happy, is that your terribly wounded son is now alive, being captive in Gaza, because the alternative is that he is dead. The second powerful, it was all powerful. The second one I'll mention is they had a video that had been taken by Hamas, that's now online, of the 12-year-old son being led away. And he looks just like a 12-year-old boy. He's kind of confused what's going on. And they have his, kind of around his neck, and they're leading him away. And all of us who know a 12-year-old boy could imagine what his emotion is. Incredibly powerful. Now, there's some who are trying to establish moral equivalency between Hamas and Israel, which just blows my mind. But just for the record, Hamas attacked and killed 1,300 Israelis and invited a response that they knew was going to happen that is now inflicting injuries upon the Palestinians. And whereas Israel drops leaflets telling people to evacuate to avoid harm, trying to save civilians, Hamas uses civilians to protect themselves and obstructs the ability of the civilian to flee from harm's way, forcing them to stay where they may be injured. There is no moral equivalency here. Israel supported the United States in our war on terror. The United States will support Israel in its war on terror. And to finish with where I started, as we're meeting with the families, they're all Americans, almost all Americans, American Israelis, lived in New York, lived in Chicago, and on and on. They drew hope from the relationship of the United States with Israel. They drew hope from that and said, with your help, we can do this. And the United States is there to help Israel. Thank you.
Thank you. You can see we are a united group who was just moved by everything we saw and heard today, and our desire to help Israel is resolute. Resolute. Few questions just on this subject. We only can take a few. We got to go. Yes, ma'am.
Just express a personal and national gratitude and for the support the U.S. has been giving us. It's it really makes me cry. It's really been moving and important, and thank you. Regarding the hostages and captives in Gaza Strip, do you know about any humanitarian channels that are open right now in order to get out the children and the women before other, or again, amongst other initiatives?
I know, let me speak on behalf of trying to get all of the hostages out, Israeli and American. We brought this up and spent time with every Israeli leader we talked to, including the War Cabinet, and we have some ideas. We are going to talk to our president about it, who was moved when he talked to the hostages on Zoom. And there are a number of different channels and ideas, but we've been told that to talk about those publicly would be counterproductive. But there are, and we are going to push them. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Debbie Momblet from the Media Line. I wanted to ask, what is the line that this war needs to cross before the American military engage?
Israel has never asked for the American military to engage. The loss of life throughout the wars that Israel has fought have been Israeli lives. But having the United States supply the needs of Israel is very important, and having every one of the Israeli leaders stressed the importance of having our two carrier groups. One is already in the Eastern Mediterranean, one is on its way, means a great deal to both Israel, but also to enemies that might try to strike at Israel, showing that the force of the United States is there. So I don't think anyone's asking for American troops, but American aid is much needed in a variety of different ways. Yes. Go ahead, this gentleman. And then we'll go to, well, go ahead. We'll go that way. Yeah, okay.
Hey, Meet Mayor from AFP. Appreciate your visit. The African Union and Arab League have voiced concerns about...
I didn't hear what you said. The Arab League.
Arab League and African Union have voiced concern over genocide in Gaza. Do you share those concerns?
Look, as we have said, our goal here is very simple: to make sure that the threat of Hamas and its evilness is removed, and to make sure the hostages are brought home safely. We have stressed to every leader we have seen that there should be a minimization as best can be in this difficult situation of loss of innocent civilian life. Last one.
Two questions. Dorit Long, ABC News. The first one, you mentioned, the lack of leadership in the Congress. How much of a hindrance is that? And
I'll answer that, and then you can do your second
one.
Look, the Senate will go first. We are working very hard to put together a comprehensive package to deal with so many needs that Israel has that we discussed at great length with all of the dignitaries that we met today. And we're going to try to move it in the next few weeks. I'm asking the heads of the three relevant committees, Patty Murray of Appropriations, Jack Reed of Armed Services, and Ben Cardin of Senate Foreign Relations, to work with their Republican ranking members and the administration and my office and Leader McConnell's office to put such a plan together. We believe, we're not waiting for the House, plain and simple. That would be foolish. But we believe if we put together a strong package and pass it with an overwhelming, strong bipartisan majority, it will put pressure on the House, one way or another, to act. Second.
What have you discussed with the Israeli government about what's happening in the north with Hezbollah?
We had a great deal of discussion about the north, and obviously Israel is very concerned about the north. You saw an anti-tank missile fired today at, I think it was an Israeli home, and somebody died. But Israel hopes they don't have to fight a two-front war, north and south, but is prepared if they have to do it and win both in the north and the south. Thank you, everybody.